Welcome to the PlanDesigner Basic Tutorial Series. This series will cover many features of PlanDesigner. Take each tutorial in order to fully understand the basic functions of PlanDesigner. Let's begin. In PlanDesigner, the right dock is the container that holds several library objects. Each planning use has its own library. This library consists of all the predefined system objects that can be used to quickly build a plan template. Whether you're creating combo boxes, text fields, text areas, radio options, checkboxes, images, buttons, or date selection fields, they all become objects when they're placed on the workspace. Use the system help for a definition of object types and when is the appropriate time to use them. Let's take a moment to look at the details of an object on the workspace. In our roadmap template, you can see that we have several different types of fields or objects already on the workspace. If we click on the Building Our Roadmap object, we can see in the Property panel the different attributes for this object. Attributes offered in the property dock will change depending on the type of object that's selected. For a full definition of all attributes offered in PlanDesigner, see the System Help. Objects on the workspace are aligned based on the top and left boundary of the object. These boundary lines are shown in an orange outline. We can change the position of any object on the workspace by changing the X and Y coordinates or by left-clicking and dragging to another area of the workspace. To change the vertical position of the object, use the Y property. At a value of 0, the vertical alignment of this object is set at the top of the grid space. Notice the X property. The X property, or horizontal alignment, of our object is set to 20. This refers to the left boundary of our object. Both the X and Y boundary lines appear on the same line as the grid. This is because our grid is set to 20 by 20. Using the View option, change the grid size. Let's choose 50. Notice now how the object boundaries appear within the grid axis. Let's change back our grid. To move our object lower vertically on the workspace, let's change our Y property. Notice how the alignment of that object has maintained its horizontal axis, but has now changed its vertical. The text presented to the user to identify an object is called a label. A label can be modified at any time. Let's change our Building Our Roadmap label. Locate the label attribute in the property dock. Let's change it to Roadmap to Success. Notice as I was typing, the label was changing simultaneously. We can continue to edit this label by changing the style. Formatting of the text of any object can be changed as well. By clicking on the object in the workspace and then selecting a style option from the formatting toolbar, let's change the font. Now let's change the size and the color. If no objects are selected on the workspace, you can set the overall style of all new objects that will be dropped on the workspace. Let's give that a try. Notice how our formatting settings are set to Arial, a size 14, and the color red. Now let's select an object from one of the right dock panels. Drag and drop the object onto the workspace. Notice how the style is assumed from whatever the settings are in the formatting toolbar. You can change these at any time by just selecting the object and changing the settings. Now let's take a look at the new object we just placed on the workspace. Notice how this object on the workspace has some of the same attributes as the previous object, but also has additional ones. The type of object selected determines the specific properties that can be modified. It's easy to change objects in the workspace. Use the guidelines that we just learned. Let's change some of the attributes of this object. I want to change the label of this object from economies to funding. Locate the label attribute in the property dock and type the new label. I also want to change the height of the overall object. Let's change this from 40 to 55. Notice how when I made this change, the vertical scroll disappeared. Now let's change the label layout. Rather than vertical, meaning that the label is above the text field itself, let's change it to horizontal so they're side by side. Now let's left click and hold our mouse down and drag and drop the object to a new position on the workspace. Now let's actually move our object to another tab in our workspace. Select the object, click on the Edit menu, select Cut, choose the next tab, scroll to the position where you'd like, choose Edit, and then Paste. This actually drops the object in the center of that workspace. If you'd like to remove an object from the workspace, click on the object and select the Delete icon from the Action toolbar. These are just a few basic functions that can be performed to manage objects while designing your planning template. Continue with the advanced tutorial series in PlanDesigner for more on managing objects. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this feature of PlanDesigner. Take a few moments for a refresher quiz before clicking the next tutorial in the series.